In this lesson, we'll focus on detailing the epidermis with pores and wrinkles. All right, great. So this is kind of where we're at as far as the masking for the subdermal layer. Now, at this point, I want to go ahead and focus on some surface details for the epidermis here. So thinking about things like pores and cracks and wrinkles and things of that nature. So let's go ahead and start with the pores. Now, I showed you the brush that we're going to use in the last lesson. It's over here under your projects shelf. And I believe it's this one, yes, this one right here. So we'll go ahead and turn on both the flow and the alpha control there. I'm just going to kind of zoom in here on his cheek, and we're going to do kind of a little area here. Now, as far as the color goes, let's go ahead and, before we choose a color, let's go ahead and create a new paint layer here. And we're just going to call this Pores. And we'll go ahead and hold down the J key to bring up our color pop-up. And what we could probably do is just start off by sampling, holding down the C key, the color underneath. And you can see it's something like this right now. So if we want, let's go ahead and just darken that up a bit. Not necessarily saturating it. Let's just darken it up. And I'm going to come in here and shrink my brush down. So let me go ahead and make sure we have a selection made here. All right, fantastic. So when it comes to these pores, obviously pores are things that we really just can't see, or what we can, but there's so many of them that really what we're seeing isn't so much individual pores, it's just kind of this general noise that is created. So when we come in here, we might even come in and turn off the lit mode. I'm going to come in and do something like this for the pores. Now that may be just a little bit dark as far as the diffuse, but I think it's going to be alright. So let me come in here and I'll hit the X key and I'll just simply sample maybe that color there. And we can come in, and if we get a little bit dark in an area, we can come back in and just kind of hit that area again. You know, it's not about well-defined individual little pores here. It's more about just that noise that is created as a result of painting this type of detail. So if I were to bake that in, turn the lights back on, you can kind of see that little bit of noise just adds a nice little subtle touch to that. Now, my lighting may not be something that's supporting viewing that right now, so we could come in here and really just dial the specular the rest of the way down. Maybe even the ambient light, adjust that a little bit. So there you go. Now you can see kind of that noise I'm talking about. So this is the kind of noise that I'm looking to achieve. Let me come in and turn the lights back off here. This is something that I think keeping your distance from the model kind of uniform is going to help you to sort of match the scaling of this information. We'll just come in here, and again, you know, you can choose one color to paint these with and then sample the color that you're painting on top of if you want to come back in and just kind of paint with that original color again. So I want to come back over here. Make sure I had the right color selected here. Maybe around the nose we start to make these pores a little bit heavier and a little bit more noticeable. I know that a lot of people, even in their adult years, struggle with acne and things like blackheads on their nose. I know that it's actually a pretty common occurrence. So maybe around in some of these areas we can actually go a little bit darker with some of this. For example, kind of here in the corners. And if we need to, we can come back in and break some of those areas up. Sort of like that. And we'll just hit these areas under here a little bit. Now, I don't think that you need to paint these pores everywhere on the face or everywhere on the head or even on the hands. I mean, like I said before, it's really more about the noise than it is about the individual pores. So areas of focus is probably where you would want to paint these in as a general rule. So kind of around the face here, maybe the cheeks, maybe not so much around the eyes, but just kind of paint this in relatively quickly here. And again, we're using the pressure component of my stylus here to sort of regulate these pores. If there's areas that you want them to be a little more dominant, for example, another common place where pores are really visible is right under here. You can always press a little harder. And if it goes a little too hard, we can kind of peel that back with the other color. And again, hitting X on my keyboard to cycle between those. So we'll just kind of paint in up here. I think I've got the wrong color selected, and I do. So we'll go ahead and hit the X key. And we'll just kind of continue to layer this in. Now, when I zoom out on this, those things disappear pretty quickly. So you really have to be zoomed in pretty close to be able to see this type of detail. But, you know, depending on kind of how close this is going to be to the camera, this is an amount of detail that if your character's face is going to be something that's filling the entire screen and the camera is zoomed in on, then it's a kind of detail that you'll want to go ahead and take the time to do. So it really doesn't take long. It's just kind of a noise, and you can just fill it in pretty quickly. So let's talk about some wrinkles really quick. So we've got basically the pores covered. I want to come in and just simply grab a basic brush, holding the K key on my keyboard, grab the default brush. And over here in my brush editor, let me just come in and play with that a little bit. Let's go ahead and turn on maybe the flow here also. And I'm actually going to scroll down and shrink this guy down to an exact size. Let's go with something like maybe 4. I think that'll work pretty well. So now for this particular part, I'm going to work around his eye here. You can see that the normal map is showing there's a lot of wrinkles around his eye. Now, it's really kind of hard to see those because there's not any change in diffuse color there. But what we can do is we can come in and maybe sample a color. Let's go ahead and hit the J key and just go with a little darker, a little more saturated version of that here. And then using my pressure sensitive settings over here, I can start to kind of layer that in. Now, I may come in and turn off the radius control. I may actually go with a little bit larger brush too. Let's go up to about maybe 6. Because there's going to be a point where you're not going to be able to really make out these wrinkles. Again, we're working at such a low resolution that too small a brush is just going to look kind of artifacts. So you can see here I'm just kind of painting in and highlighting some of these various wrinkles around the eye socket. This is where having access to the high poly model would probably be a good idea. The normal map is a great addition to the textures we're painting, but nothing's going to replace the high poly sculpted detail. So we can come in here, we can even see what we got selected. Let's just come in a little darker in some of these areas. Maybe start to kind of pull some wrinkles off the eye here. And we'll just go down a little bit in size. Whoop. Undo back a few steps. That's just because orbit back around here. Go down to about a 5 maybe. And let's go ahead and start working these wrinkles again. So again, this is where photographic reference will really help you as far as the kind of the direction the wrinkles flow and how the color is being affected by the depth of the wrinkles and things like that. So you can see here basically we're painting a lot of essentially faked ambient occlusion, kind of like we did on the shoes. But basically what this is going to do is it's going to add a little bit of depth to the eye. It's going to add a little bit of age to it, make it feel like this guy is probably the age he was intended to be. Just go ahead and bake that down really quick. And let me just hit the 6 key on my keyboard. We'll go to a front view. And you can see kind of comparing the two eyes here. This eye, you know, we've gone a little bit heavy in certain areas. So might think about coming in and even painting back some of that. But you can see really how just looking at the wrinkles around this eye compared to this eye, he looks a lot older on the right side of the screen here. So may come in and, like I said, touch some of these areas up just a bit, just to kind of some of the wrinkles seemed really pronounced, and I might just want to come in and kind of start to peel those back just a bit. So, but this is a really nice step as far as adding some age to your character. You can also come in and paint on the surfaces between the wrinkles, sort of like I'm doing right now, to kind of basically give them a little lighter hue. So basically thinking about shadow, mid-tone, highlight. 3 different colors, and you've got some really fairly believable wrinkles there. So I'll go ahead and work on these wrinkles a little bit more in between lessons. I'll also work on the pores some, but I want to go ahead and continue detailing the facial area of our character, since we already talked earlier in this course about that being sort of a focal point. We've got a lot of texture space occupied by the head shell. So in the next lesson, we'll continue detailing by adding some stubble to the face as well as some eyebrows.